The prisoner. Forever present. Forever savior. But just as the hero of each Elder Scrolls story must always remain a constant, so too must the villain, and so too must the towers. As with the rise of each hero, the villain must fall, and the tower emptied. But what exactly are these so-called towers that dot the landscape of Tamriel? And more importantly, what exactly is their role in existing? Now, before I start, I'd first like to say that this will be nothing like my typical theory, rant, or lore videos. Rather, I simply wish to make an overview of what exactly the towers are, as well as a bit of their history and perhaps what their functions may be, based on what the lore tells us at least. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. To understand the Towers of Tamriel, we must first understand what they are not. To be exact, we need to understand that the various towers are firstly, not the tower constellation, or the metaphysical tower which is used in the Sijic endeavor. That being said, understanding the metaphysical tower is crucial in understanding the more physical towers. The metaphysical towers appear to be a sideways view of the Great Orbic Wheel, with the wheel itself simply being a metaphor for the structure of the plane of existence. This wheel, therefore, consists of 8 spokes, a center, a middle, and an outer rim. The center being in reference to Mundus, while the spokes, which there are 8, perhaps being in reference to the 8 divines that gave their essence to create Mundus. And the middle space being in reference to the space occupied by the various realms of oblivion, and the outer rim, of course, being in reference to the limits of the realm of existence, otherwise known as the void. Though my description of the tower really doesn't do it any justice, as it's more of an intangible representation of existence within creation than a truly physical object, or more clearly, in quotation of the 3rd volume of the commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes. The tower touches all mantles of heaven, and by its apex one can be as he was and yet change for all else on the path for those that walk after. This is the 3rd key of Numantia, and the secret of how mortals become makers, and makers back to mortals. The bones of the wheel need their flesh, and that is mankind's heirloom. But now you may wonder, what exactly is the connection between the towers that Lorcan saw, which seems to be a slight hint as to how one should achieve the Sijic endeavor, and the ones that I've seen in the games? Well, there's just one last thing left in explaining what they are, and that is the secret that the tower holds. The secret to what exactly it was that Lorcan saw when he witnessed the tower. Something that has been extremely vague in its various descriptions, but appears to be the key to viewing the tower without leaving the wheel, or essentially, the key to Chim, or zero summing. That then brings us back to the towers, of which there are 8, just like how there are 8 spokes to the Great Orbic Wheel, when which turn to its side looks to be the tower, otherwise known as the Eye. These 8 towers consist of Adamantia, the Red Tower, the White Gold Tower, Crystal-like Law, Snowthroat, Green Sap, the Calc Tower, and lastly, but definitely not least, Walkbrass. The first of these towers, while also being listed as such, was and always shall be Adamantia, otherwise known as Drenny Tower, Tower Zero, the Tower, as well as many other names. Was created when Mundus first was taken shape. You see, the gods had this entire formless plane that they had created, but no place from which to decide how they should rule it, or more importantly, why they should rule it at all. This tower would then go on to be the origin of all things on Mundus, as well as the place on which the fate of Lorcan was decided. A fate that would leave the mutant's body bound to Mundus as master and secunda, and his bones as the structure from which all would be made. But for every tower there is also a stone, from which the tower sometimes takes its name. In the case of Adamantia, it's the Zero Stone, an inert magical object from which all creation was dictated and made, but one that none, even the most powerful of mages, may ever hope to control. Alongside the stone resides a great many rings, rings which function as a lock that has never been opened. All of which is then contained within an ageless spire of some ageless metal, with which only the outside facade has ever been changed. That being said, it should also be noted that Adamantia is the oldest and largest structure on Mundus, to which no mortal architect could ever hope to achieve. With the original tower out of the way, we can look at the tower that was to come right after, the Red Tower, otherwise known as Red Mountain. In the case of this tower, its creation was not made from intention, but rather from frustration, as Auriel had originally attempted to destroy Lorcan's heart, but only made it laugh in his attempts, ultimately forcing him to impale it with an arrow and launch it across the world. Where the heart landed, a volcano would form, thereby becoming the second tower and the first stone. The heart would then go on to bestow Nirn with the same divinity that had once inhabited the body of Lorcan himself, binding the fate of Nirn to all of creation in that single moment. This then would lead to the various events of the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, as well as the events that followed and those that preceded, with the ultimate resolution being the destruction of the heart, alongside the prophesized Nerevarine who would do it. The third tower, at least on the list, was the White Gold Tower, constructed by the Ayleid elves in order to mimic Adamantia, though it should be noted that they also built 8 other towers for the White Gold Tower to be encircled by, ultimately creating their own sort of miniature orbic wheel. The Ayleid would then go about using the stone known as Chim El Adabal, believed to be the coagulated blood of Lorcan's heart as it flew over the region, to make it a platform from which they would reunite the mortal plane with the realm of the gods, all the while changing time in such a way that the White Gold Tower would become the first tower, even though the crystal-like law was known to have been historically erected before it. This plan of the Ayleids never truly saw fruition, but in a way, alongside the events of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, it kind of did, seeing as it did help Martin Septim become an avatar of Akatosh. That being said, in the end, Chim El Adabal, just like with the Heart of Lorcan, was destroyed, repeating what had been done in the past and perhaps setting a precedent for the future. The fourth tower, which was technically the third, was Crystal-like Law. Similar in intent to the White Gold Tower, its purpose was to mimic Adamantia, or in essence, preserve the elder magics that had constructed Mundus and the Orbic Wheel in the first place. Unlike the White Gold Tower, however, it succeeded in maintaining its purpose, as the stone that resided within this tower, otherwise known as the Heart of Transparent Law, acted as a sort of anchor for Mundus, forever keeping the various coinciding existences of Mundus from phasing into each other, and as such, keeping the Orbic Wheel from ever collapsing in on itself. This purpose was broken for a time during the events of the Elder Scrolls Online Somerset, but thanks to the help of not only the forever constant prisoner, but also a variety of Daedric princes, most notably Meridia, the heart was returned to his residence atop Crystal-like Law once more, and reality, as is typically the case, was saved. The fifth tower, as well as the most recent in terms of the events that took place, was Snowthroat, otherwise known as the Throat of the World. This tower, despite its rather recent and notable appearance, has a greatly lacking history behind it. As such, not much can be said about what exactly its stone is, though it is thought to be a cave, or how the tower even came to be. What we can say is that the tower ended up housing the world leader Alduin for a great many years, throwing the corrupted aspect of Akatosh into a stream of time from which he was unable to escape until time that he was prophesied to do so. This of course coincided with the return of the last Dragonborn, and the events of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, who would then go on to slay Alduin and prevent the world leader from consuming existence, all of which was referred to in an ancient Akaviri prophecy, stating, "The world eater wakes, and the wheel turns upon the last Dragonborn," perhaps being in reference to some sort of greater event that the wheel is eventually going to lead to, though this last bit is just mere speculation. The sixth tower, then, is Green Sap, otherwise known as the Grot Oak, a massive tree grown by the Bosmer in their heartland of Grotwood. Though, unlike the other towers, Green Sap was many, or rather, they were many, as its origin was not from a stone but rather an acorn, whereas the Bosmer referred to it as a perchance acorn. An acorn that could have grown anywhere. Hence why anything that grows from the green sap is referred to as the green, and as such is held in similar regard and power. Speaking of power, the green sap are said to have the power to change the world around them, described more generally as their song. A song to which the green sap dances to, and to which the Bosmer took a great liking to. This song had no true beginning, but every ending. Endings from which the Bosmer could choose, and as such, tell the green to adhere to. Though the great grotwood tree that we see during the events of ESO is known as the only grot that was told a definite end, and as such was unable to move due to the actions of the great magus Sunumero, who convinced one of the perchance acorns from the green that it was a definite acorn. Sadly, Anumero's plan never did go as planned, as in the green, nothing is ever definite, and always perchance. The seventh tower is perhaps the one we know the least about, or Calc, though the origin of the name is uncertain, but is believed to have something to do with the tower's stone, a sword. Sadly, there is no evidence to confirm such a rumor, as the tower sunk alongside the extracalpic isle of Yakuta. For this reason, its powers are also not really known. But the Augur of the Obscure, from the events of the Elder Scrolls Online Somerset, refers to the tower as an ugly, sunken, long-forgotten thing, forever shrouding its fate in a time long gone. This then leads us to our eighth and perhaps last tower, Walk Brass, better known as A Numidium, or just simply the Brass Tower. Originally a creation by the Dwemer in order to transcend the mortal plane, seems like a trend among elves really, it would be powered by the Heart of Lorcan, which would function as its stone, and be used as a tool that would allow the Dwemer to walk once more amongst the gods. But while the technicalities of this process are not fully known, the fate of it is, as with the disappearance of the Dwemer also came the construction of Numidium, which essentially consisted of the leftover pieces of A Numidium, all of which were given to Tiber Septim by the Tribunal under some sort of deal. This resulted in the brass skull of Numidium, powered by a replacement gem, also known as the Mantella, aiding in the conquest of all of Tamriel, ultimately uniting it under the flag of Tiber Septim's empire. It should also be noted, however, that the improper or even imperfect use of the tower has been known to cause lasting time and space distortions, and even more potential issues that have yet to be found. This did not deter Dagothur, however. Having been trapped alongside the heart for so long, the leader of the fallen House of Marwyn had been victim to its power, and ultimately its truth. Dagothur, as with the events of the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, would go on to construct his own attempt at the Brass Tower, this time naming it a Kulakam, with the Heart of Lorcan being its power source once more. But as we already know, it, alongside the Heart, was destroyed following the events of the game, ultimately ending the tale of the Heart of Lorcan and the Brass Tower, for now. All of this then finally leads me to my conclusion. The conclusion that the towers, as mentioned earlier, cannot be understood without first understanding what exactly the metaphysical Tower of Lorcan's was. And what I think all this means was that the towers were the key to unlocking Lorcan's tower. As if the Orbic Tower was in reference to achieving Chim, or at least understanding one's existence, then what more to do than to understand the towers that hold up existence? This notion has been echoed many times over by various scholars and mages in the Elder Scrolls universe, but has always had its own issues, with the issues being that there simply isn't enough concrete evidence. Nothing that truly points us in the direction of the tower's meaning. And because of that, this video, just like it began, ends with some questions answered, but also many more left unknown. Though perhaps that is simply the nature of the towers, and more so the nature of lore in the Elder Scrolls. Perhaps even more so, it needs to stay that way. But that is a story for another time.
A shield, a strided, AllIN I chased under Azura. In the very taste, I knew of his Sujamma won't go to waste, won't go to waste, won't go to waste, won't go to waste. But still, I tried it. AllIN I chased under Azura. In the very taste, I knew that this Sujamma won't go to waste, won't go to waste, won't go to waste, won't go to waste. But still, I tried it. AllIN I chased under Secunda in the red haze.